sixth form and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to start off by considering the reaction to the Tsar's incompetence during World War I. Now we know he was an utterly terrible leader, and his decision to go and lead the forces themselves from 1915 was utterly atrocious. It led to the Tsarina being in charge at home. It led to accusations that that Rasputin had too much power. It led to the leapfrogging ministers, and it led to the Tsar being unable to shift the blame for the failures of the war onto any of his advisors, as he had been able to do in the 1905 war. Therefore, the most important thing that happened as a consequence of World War I was a huge loss of support for the Tsar. Now put this back into context of the war. In 1914, the liberals and the vast majority of Russian society had rallied round. Their patriotism and xenophobia were pumped up by the war. They were excited to support it. They thought it would prove Russia's greatness. There is only one political party who consistently opposed the war, and that is the Bolsheviks. Everybody else in 1914 welcomed it, supported it, were loving it. In fact, they went on, the liberals, to form voluntary organisations to help the war effort. In particular, we have the formation of the Zemgor. Now, the Zemgor was created from Zemstvos and from the Union of Towns. And essentially it did basic war work. So things like manufacturing boots, uniforms, pharmaceuticals, munitions, that sort of thing. Now it did this because the Tsar refused the Duma to have any power at this time. So as soon as the war broke out, the Tsar got rid of the Duma. Now we have all these liberals who want to help, but now they can't through the Duma, so they form the Zemgor to do that instead. The Zemgor didn't actually produce that much in terms of actual war materials, but the significance of it is that it was really efficient, really well run, and so it put the government to shame because the government was so atrociously organised. Zemgor also saw the rise of Prince Lvov as an important leader for the liberals and progressives, and he's going to be important following the 1917 February Revolution. Now, as the war progressed, Nicholas's incompetence and the failures of things like the Great Retreat turned public opinion against the government. They were embarrassed by how badly Russia was doing in the war, and so the Tsar was forced to recall the Duma in 1915. Now, the Duma organised itself into the Progressive Bloc. And this has included the vast majority of the Duma, just not the extreme left or the extreme right. The Progressive Bloc went on to call for a unified government. Essentially, they called for a government that would actually be able to cope with the war. It's not a big demand. They weren't asking for a revolution. They weren't asking for increased powers. They were just asking for a competent government. And yet the Tsar sees this as too great a demand. How dare this uppity, upstart Duma be telling him what to do? Nicholas went on to dismiss every minister who had wanted him to compromise and work with the Progressive Bloc. And essentially this was the moment where even the moderate liberals went, God, we can't work with this guy. He is just too extreme and too rubbish. So even the cadets from this point knew that they could no longer compromise and work with the Tsar. Now they weren't working towards a constitutional monarchy like they had been previously. Now they were looking to get rid of the Tsar, end the Romanov dynasty, or at least force this incompetent Tsar to abdicate. Now I'd just like you to read this information about what the Zemgor was doing. And this information about the Progressive Bloc. Now I'd like you to read page 328 in your textbook and answer the questions on the sheet uploaded onto Show My Homework. Now we are approaching the end of topic 2, looking at 1906 to 1917. And this is a period where we're thinking about growing, well, the issue of instability really. How unstable was Russia in this period? What were the factors that might have led to growing instability? To help you remember this, think donut. Okay, these are the factors that affected the stability of Russia in this period. We've got D, the formation of the Duma, O, the October Manifesto, U, unrest, G, the gold mines, Nina Goldfield, H, the high command of the army, the Tsar taking over, N, new factors, the fundamental laws, U, the urban working classes, and T, the Trudovics, who, let me just remind you, are that labour group within the Duma. Could you please copy this down on an A4 side and pop it at the end of your 1906 to 1917 section. To finish today, we're going to have a game of Who Am I? We've got 6 different people mentioned here. Can you guess who they are from the clues? You might want to pause the slide, pause the video if you haven't got them all. Here are some more. Again, pause the video so that you have enough time to read through it all. And here are your answers. Did you get them all?